Marcus Everett stepped onto the Horizon Elite jet in Miami, his first-class ticket a quiet promise of peace en route to Seattle. He reached seat 2A, only to find a white man lounging there, smirking. Vanessa Kendrick, the lead attendant, swept in, her smile icy. "You've been reassigned to economy," she declared loudly, eyes gleaming as passengers whispered. "Seats like these aren't for everyone," she added, venom cloaked in courtesy. The sting of her words sparked a fire in Marcus. This wasn't just a slight. It was a declaration of war, one that would topple giants. What happens when the man they dismissed holds the sky itself? Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. If you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe for more stories that expose truth and ignite change. Marcus Everett settled into the economy seat, row 27B, his broad shoulders brushing the armrests of a space clearly not designed for comfort. The Horizon Elite jet hummed as it taxied from Miami's glittering terminal, bound for Seattle. But the luxury of first class felt like a distant memory. His reassignment still burned. Vanessa Kendrick's words, "Seats like these aren't for everyone," echoing like a slap. The cabin buzzed with the low murmur of passengers, their eyes darting toward him then away, as if he were a puzzle they didn't care to solve. The seat itself was an insult, its tray table cracked and wobbling, a faint ring of dried coffee staining the plastic like a badge of neglect. Marcus adjusted his tailored charcoal suit, the fabric catching slightly on the rough upholstery, and took a slow breath. He wasn't here to lose his cool. He was here to think. Across the aisle, a woman in a coral sundress glanced at him, her lips pursing before she turned back to her magazine. Next to her, a man in a golf polo, his sunburned neck spilling over the collar, leaned closer to whisper something that made her nod. Marcus caught the word "entitled" before their voices dropped. He let it slide, his focus shifting to the crew. Vanessa moved through first class, her platinum blonde hair pulled into a tight bun, her smile reserved for those in the forward cabin. Two other attendants trailed her, a wiry man with a buzz cut and a younger woman with a nervous fidget. They exchanged glances as they passed Marcus's row, their eyes lingering a beat too long. The wiry one, his name tag reading Brian, smirked faintly, like he was in on a joke Marcus hadn't heard. Marcus pressed his fingers to the bridge of his nose, recalibrating. He'd built Apex Pulse from a single laptop in a cramped apartment, turning it into a cybersecurity titan that governments leaned on when their systems faltered. A downgraded seat wouldn't break him, but the crew's coordinated stare, the whispers from passengers, the coffee-stained table, they weren't accidents, they were signals. He reached into his briefcase, pulling out his encrypted tablet, its matte black surface cool against his palm. If they wanted to play, he'd keep score. He opened a discreet app, one his team had coded for moments like this, and hit record. The tiny microphone icon pulsed green, capturing every sound within 10 feet. The cabin lights dimmed as the plane climbed to cruising altitude, the seatbelt sign flicking off with a soft chime. Marcus leaned forward to flag Brian, who was pushing a beverage cart down the aisle. "Excuse me," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. "This tray table's broken. Can you get it fixed or replaced?" Brian stopped, his cart rattling against the seats. He looked at the table, then at Marcus, his smirk widening. "You're lucky to be here at all," he said, loud enough for the golf polo guy to chuckle. "These seats fill up fast. Maintenance isn't my job." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "So whose job is it?" Brian shrugged, already moving on. "File a complaint when we land. I'm sure they'll get right on it." The dismissal stung, but Marcus kept his face neutral. He tapped the app, ensuring it. Caught Brian's tone, the chuckle, the woman's quick glance from across the aisle. Evidence was power, and he was building a vault. The golf polo guy leaned over now, his voice carrying. "Some people think they can buy their way up front," he said to his seatmate, not bothering to lower his volume. "They don't get how it works." Marcus met his eyes for a split second, long enough to see the man flinch before looking away. The woman flipped her magazine page with a snap, pretending not to hear. Marcus exhaled, his fingers tightening around the tablet. He was no stranger to rooms where he wasn't wanted, But this wasn't a room. It was a cage, and the crew held the keys. He opened a spreadsheet on his tablet, drafting notes for his Seattle pitch. A classified contract to secure Pentagon servers. Apex Pulse was weeks away from sealing it, and he couldn't afford distractions. But the cabin's hostility was a drumbeat, steady and deliberate. Vanessa's voice crackled over the intercom, smooth as polished glass. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For our priority passengers, we'll begin meal service shortly. For everyone else, please remain patient. We're ensuring a seamless experience." The emphasis on priority landed like a jab, and Marcus felt eyes on him again. A teenage girl 2 rows ahead turned, her phone half raised as if to snap a photo, then thought better of it. Marcus closed his spreadsheet, his jaw tight. He wasn't imagining the targeting. Vanessa's announcement wasn't just procedure, it was a flex, a reminder of who belonged and who didn't. He leaned back, forcing his shoulders to relax, when the cart rattled to a stop beside him. Brian again, his smirk now a full grin. "Drink?" he asked, like it was a dare. "Water," Marcus said. Brian handed him a plastic cup, the rim smudged with lipstick. Marcus set it down without touching it. "Got anything cleaner?" he asked. Brian's grin faltered, but he recovered fast. "That's all we've got back here," he said. "Take it or leave it." The golf polo guy laughed outright this time, a sharp bark that drew more eyes. Marcus felt the cabin shrinking, the air thick with judgment. He tapped the app again, the green pulse steady. Every word, every laugh. They'd pay for it later. He was about to stand, to stretch his legs and clear his head, when Vanessa's voice cut through the cabin again, this time sharper. "Attention, please. For security reasons, we're conducting priority passenger checks. Mr. Everett, row 27, please prepare your carry-on for inspection." The intercom clicked off, leaving a heavy silence. Marcus froze, his pulse quickening. Priority passenger checks? He'd flown Horizon Elite dozens of times. There was no such protocol. Heads turned, the teenage girl now openly staring, her phone back in hand. The woman in the sundress whispered something to her seatmate, her eyes narrowing. Marcus stood, his briefcase in hand, as Brian and the nervous attendant, her name tag reading Chloe, approached. Vanessa followed, her heels clicking like a metronome. "Routine procedure, Mr. Everett," she said, her smile tight. "Open your bag, please." Marcus met her gaze, seeing the glint of triumph in her eyes. This wasn't routine. This was a performance. He unzipped the briefcase slowly, every movement deliberate. Chloe rummaged through it, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled out his tablet. A notebook, a pen. Brian stood too close, his breath sour with coffee. "Oops," he muttered, knocking the tablet to the floor with a clatter. It skidded under the seat, the screen flashing briefly before going dark. "Sorry about that," Brian said, not sounding sorry at all. Marcus knelt to retrieve it, his fingers brushing the cold metal. The tablet was intact, but the message was clear. They wanted him small, exposed, powerless. Vanessa stepped forward, her voice loud enough for the entire section to hear. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Everett. We appreciate passengers who follow protocol." She lingered on protocol, letting it hang like a verdict. The golf polo guy nodded approvingly, as if order had been restored. Marcus stood, tablet in hand, his face a mask of calm. Inside, his mind raced. The app was still running, capturing Vanessa's tone, Brian's fake apology, the crowd's complicity. He'd been downgraded, mocked, and now stripped bare in front of strangers. But they'd miscalculated. Marcus Everett didn't break. He built. The crew moved on, Vanessa's heels fading toward first class. Marcus sat, his tablet on his lap, the coffee stain on the tray table glaring like a brand. The teenage girl finally looked away, her phone tucked into her pocket. The woman in the sundress flipped another page, her lips pursed again. The golf polo guy stretched, his chuckle lingering in the air. Marcus opened the tablet, the app still, pulsing green. He added a note to his file. Incident 1, public search, intentional spill. They thought they'd won this round. They had no idea what was coming. Marcus Everett sat in row 27B, the Horizon Elite jet slicing through the night sky toward Seattle. The sting of Vanessa Kendrick's public bag search lingered, the memory of his tablet skidding across the floor under Brian's smug oops replaying like a bad loop. The economy cabin hummed with restless energy, passengers shifting in their seats, their whispers quieter now, but no less sharp. The coffee-stained tray table wobbled as Marcus set his tablet down, its screen still, dark from the fall. He powered it on, relief washing over him as the Apex Pulse logo flickered to life. It was intact, and so was the recording. Brian's sneer, Vanessa's icy protocol, the golf polo guy's chuckle, all captured in crisp audio. Marcus leaned back, his charcoal suit creased but his focus razor-sharp. They'd tried to humiliate him. He'd make sure they regretted it. The cabin lights cast a sterile glow, highlighting the divide between economy's cramped rows and the unseen luxury of first class. Marcus glanced toward the curtain separating the sections, where Vanessa's silhouette moved with practiced grace, serving drinks to passengers who'd never know the weight of her stare. Brian was closer, restocking the beverage cart near row 20. His buzz cut gleamed under the fluorescence, his smirk replaced by a bored scowl. Marcus saw his chance. He stood, briefcase in hand, and approached Brian at the galley's edge, where the cart's clatter masked their words from curious ears. "We need to talk," Marcus said, his voice low but unyielding. "About that search." Brian froze, his hand pausing on a stack of plastic cups. He glanced around, ensuring Vanessa wasn't nearby, then forced a grin. "What's the problem, man?" "Just doing my job." Marcus held his gaze, unblinking. "Your job includes dropping my tablet and laughing about it? I've got it recorded. Every word." Brian's grin faltered, his eyes darting to the tablet in Marcus's briefcase. He shifted his weight, the cart creaking under his grip. "Look," he muttered, "maybe things got heated. Misunderstanding, you know. I didn't mean anything by it. I'll sort it out." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Sort it out how?" Brian hesitated, then lowered his voice. "I'll talk to Vanessa, get you a better seat or something. Just don't make a big deal." Marcus studied him, sensing the crack in Brian's bravado. It wasn't an apology, not really, but it was a concession, a small win in a game stacked against him. He nodded once, sharp and deliberate. "Make it quick," he said, then turned back to his seat, his steps measured. The woman in the coral sundress watched him pass, her magazine lowered, her lips pursed in disapproval. The teenage girl 2 rows ahead peeked over her seat, her phone tucked away, but her eyes wide with curiosity. Marcus sat, a flicker of triumph warming his chest. He'd called Brian's bluff and the man had blinked. For the first time since boarding, he felt a sliver of control. He opened his tablet again, checking the recording. The app's green, pulse was steady, the file secure. He added a note. Incident 2, confrontation with Brian, partial retreat. Apex Pulse had taught him to weaponize patience, to build leverage brick by brick. If Brian followed through, Marcus might claw back, some dignity before landing. If not, the recording would be his next move. He glanced at his watch, 2 hours into the 6-hour flight. Plenty of time to shift the board in his favor. He leaned back, allowing himself a moment to breathe, the cabin's hum almost soothing. Now, but the calm shattered like glass. Marcus set his tablet on the tray table to stretch his legs, leaving his briefcase unzipped beside him. He stood, nodding politely to the sundress woman, who ignored him and stepped into the aisle. The lavatory was a few rows back, and he needed a minute to clear his head. He was gone less than 3 minutes, weaving past a snoring man in a tracksuit and a kid kicking the seat in front. When he returned, his tablet was still there, but something was off. The screen was dark again, not sleeping but powered off. He tapped the power button. Nothing. He pressed harder, his pulse spiking. The Apex Pulse logo didn't appear. The device was dead. Marcus knelt, checking under the seat, his fingers brushing the carpet for cracks or dents. The tablet's edge was scuffed, a hairline fracture spiderwebbing the corner. He powered it on again, holding his breath. The screen flickered, then went black, a faint whine escaping the speakers before silence. His stomach dropped. The tablet wasn't just a device. It held encrypted drafts for his Pentagon pitch, client keys, and the recording he'd just leveraged against Brian. Without it, he was exposed, his leverage gone. He looked up, scanning the cabin. The golf polo guy was staring, his lips twitching into a grin. "Guess he can't afford a new one," he muttered to his seatmate, loud enough for Marcus to hear. The woman in the sundress snorted, flipping her magazine, with a snap. Marcus's jaw tightened, his mind racing. This wasn't an accident. Someone had tampered with the tablet while he was gone, and the timing, right after his talk with Brian, was too precise. He glanced toward the galley where Brian was restocking cups, his back turned. Vanessa emerged from first class, her heels clicking as she approached the economy section. She stopped near Marcus's row, her eyes locking onto his. "Is everything all right, Mr. Everett?" she asked, her voice dripping with mock concern. Marcus held the tablet up, the fracture glinting under the lights. "My device is damaged," he said evenly. "It was fine 10 minutes ago." Vanessa tilted her head, her smile tightening. "That's unfortunate," she said. "These things happen in tight spaces. Perhaps you should have been more careful." Her tone was a blade, her eyes alight with something close to glee. Marcus felt the cabin's gaze again, passengers leaning forward, the teenage girl's phone creeping out of her pocket. He wanted to push back, to demand answers, but Vanessa's confidence stopped him cold. She knew something he didn't. She leaned closer, her voice low enough for only him to hear. "We'll find you a new seat," she said. "It's the least we can do." Before Marcus could respond, she turned to Brian, her smile widening. "Please escort Mr. Everett to row 32D. It's available now." Brian nodded, his smirk returning as he gestured for Marcus to follow. Marcus grabbed his briefcase, his mind churning. Row 32D was by the lavatory, the worst seat. On the plane, cramped, noisy, reeking of disinfectant. He followed Brian, the cabin's whispers trailing him like smoke. The golf polo guy chuckled again, muttering something about standards. The teenage girl filmed discreetly, her lens catching Marcus's every step. Brian stopped at the new seat, its cushion worn thin, a faint stain darkening the fabric. "Here you go," he said, his tone mockingly formal. "Best we've got." Marcus sat, the lavatory's hum vibrating through the wall. He clutched the broken tablet, its dead screen a mirror of his dwindling options. Vanessa lingered nearby, her presence a silent taunt. She'd orchestrated this. Brian's fake apology, the tablets, sabotage, the downgrade to a worse seat. Marcus opened his briefcase, checking for other damage. His notebook was intact, but the pen was missing, its absence a petty jab. He leaned back, the lavatory's stench curling into his lungs. The recording was gone, his pitch data likely corrupted. Apex Pulse's future hung by a thread, and Vanessa knew it. She'd turned his small victory into ash, and the flight was far from over. Marcus closed his eyes, not in defeat, but in calculation. They'd raised the stakes. He'd raised them higher. Marcus Everett sank into row 32D. The Horizon Elite Jet's lavatory hum a constant drone against his left shoulder. The seat, wedged beside a flickering exit sign, reeked of stale disinfectant, its cushion so thin he felt the metal frame beneath. His broken tablet lay in his briefcase, a casualty of Vanessa Kendrick's calculated sabotage. Its dead screen a reminder of how fast things had spiraled. The Miami to Seattle flight was barely halfway through, but the cabin felt like a battlefield, every glance a skirmish. Marcus adjusted his charcoal suit, now creased and faintly damp from the economy section's stale air, and tried to focus. Vanessa's last move, dumping him here in the plane's worst seat, had been a taunt, her smug offer of a new seat a trap to grind him down further. He wasn't just fighting for dignity now, he was fighting for survival. The cabin buzzed, with mid-flight routine, passengers flipping through screens or dozing under thin blankets. But Marcus felt the weight of eyes, subtle and sharp, like pinpricks. Across the aisle, a white couple in their 50s, decked in matching navy polos, chatted loudly about their Seattle vacation plans. Their voices carried, carefree, while Marcus's every move seemed to draw scrutiny. He caught a glimpse of Vanessa through the economy curtain, her platinum bun glinting as she leaned over a first-class passenger, her laugh bright and exclusive. Closer by, Brian pushed the beverage cart with a lazy swagger, his buzz cut catching the overhead lights. Marcus's confrontation had rattled him, but not enough. Brian's smirk was back, bolder now, as if he knew Marcus's leverage had crumbled with the tablet. Marcus's gaze shifted to the galley where Vanessa stood with the nervous attendant Chloe, their heads bent over a clipboard. He couldn't hear them, but Chloe's quick glance in his direction wasn't subtle. Vanessa's lips moved, her posture stiff, and Chloe nodded rapidly, scribbling something. Marcus's gut tightened. They weren't just working, they were planning. He'd seen that look before, in boardrooms where rivals circled waiting for a misstep. Vanessa wasn't done with him. She'd humiliated him with the bag search, broken his tablet to kill his evidence, and now she was watching, orchestrating. He leaned back, forcing his breathing to slow. Apex pulse hadn't climbed to the top by panicking. He'd find a way to flip this. The intercom crackled, Vanessa's voice slicing through the cabin's hum. "Flight attendants, prepare for meal." "Service," she said, her tone crisp. "Priority passengers will be served first per Horizon Elite standards." The word priority landed like a jab, and Marcus felt the couple across the aisle glance his way, their smiles thinning. Moments later, Brian and Chloe rolled out the carts, the scent of warm bread and roasted chicken wafting through the cabin. First class got silver trays, their clinks echoing like a distant banquet. Economy's cart was slower, its offerings plastic and sparse. Marcus watched as the Navy Polo couple, now in premium seats just behind first class, received steaming plates with a flourish. Chloe smiled at them, her nerves gone, and the man raised his wine glass in thanks. When the cart reached Marcus, Brian stopped, his smirk barely hidden. "Chicken or pasta?" he asked, his tone flat. Marcus glanced at the cart, half-empty trays, a few wilted salads. "Chicken," he said, keeping his voice even. Brian handed him a tray, the foil cover loose, revealing a cold lump of meat and congealed gravy, barely enough for a child. Marcus looked up. "This is it?" Brian shrugged. "That's what's left back here. You're lucky to get anything." The woman in the Navy Polo leaned over, her voice loud. "Some people should be grateful for what they get," she said to her husband, not bothering to whisper. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he set the tray down, untouched. He wasn't here to beg for scraps. The cabin's attention shifted, a ripple of stares and murmurs. A man in a flannel shirt 3 rows ahead turned, his eyes narrowing. "Always trouble with these types," he muttered, loud enough for his seatmate to nod. Marcus felt the words like a slap, their casual venom sharper than the cold food. He wanted to stand, to call it out. But Vanessa's voice cut through again, this time from the galley's edge. "Mr. Everett," she said, her tone carrying over the cart's rattle. "You seem upset. Is there a problem?" Her smile was a mask, her eyes daring him to react. Marcus met her gaze, his voice steady. "Just wondering why my tray's half empty while others get full plates," he said. The Navy Polo woman gasped, as if he'd insulted her personally. Vanessa stepped closer, her heels clicking, her presence drawing every eye in economy. "We're doing our best with limited resources," she said loudly, her words a performance. "If you're causing a scene, I'll have to address it." The accusation hung heavy, passengers leaning forward, phones creeping out. Marcus's pulse raced, but he kept his face calm. "I'm asking a question," he said. "That's not a scene." Vanessa's smile tightened, her voice rising. "For everyone's safety, we need cooperation, not complaints. I'm initiating a security check, Mr. Everett. Please stand and prepare for screening." The cabin went silent, the hum of the jet engine suddenly deafening. Marcus stood slowly, his briefcase clutched tight, as Brian and Chloe flanked him. Passengers watched, some with pity, others with glee. The flannel shirt guy grinned, whispering to his seatmate. "Told you," he said. Chloe patted Marcus down, her hands quick but invasive, checking his pockets, his belt, his shoes. Brian stood too close, his smirk now a full grin. "Gotta make sure you're not hiding anything," he said, loud enough for the navy polo couple to chuckle. Marcus felt the stares like a spotlight, phones recording, the teenage girl from earlier, now openly filming. Vanessa supervised, her arms crossed, her satisfaction palpable. They found nothing, of course, but that wasn't the point. Chloe stepped back, her face flushed, while Brian handed Marcus his briefcase with a mock bow. "All clear," Vanessa announced, her voice ringing with false relief. "Thank you for your patience, Mr. Everett. We take safety seriously." She turned away, her heels clicking triumphantly, leaving Marcus standing in the aisle. The navy polo man clapped slowly, as if applauding a show. The flannel shirt guy laughed, his voice cutting. "Should have stayed quiet," he said. Marcus sat, his hands steady but his chest tight. They'd turned him into a spectacle, a cautionary tale for anyone who dared question their rules. He looked at his tray, the cold chicken untouched, the gravy pooling like a stain. The cabin resumed its chatter, passengers pretending nothing had happened, their complicity louder than their words. Marcus's briefcase felt heavier now, the broken tablet inside a ghost of his lost leverage. Vanessa had won this round, her power absolute, her crew, her pawns. But Marcus wasn't done. He'd been in rooms where the air felt like this, hostile, rigged, suffocating. He'd clawed his way out before. He'd do it again. But how much deeper could this go? Comment with a 1 if you've ever felt judged for just existing, and hit like and subscribe to see Marcus fight back against this injustice. Have you ever faced a system stacked against you? Tell us below, and let's keep this story rolling. What happens when a spark of resistance meets a wall of power designed to crush it? Marcus Everett slumped in row 32D. The Horizon Elite Jet's lavatory hum a relentless pulse against his spine. The stench of disinfectant clung to the air, mingling with the faint tang of his untouched meal tray. Its cold chicken and congealed gravy a mockery of the first-class feast served hours ago. The public frisking still burned. Vanessa Kendrick's voice, sharp and triumphant, announcing his compliance as passengers filmed and jeered. The navy polo couple's chuckles, the flannel shirt guy's smug told you, the teenage girls, phone capturing every second. They'd made him a spectacle, a warning etched in stares. His broken tablet, now useless in his briefcase, was a heavier loss. Its encrypted data for Apex Pulse's Pentagon pitch likely gone forever. Marcus adjusted his creased charcoal suit, his fingers brushing the worn armrest, and forced his mind to focus. Vanessa had drawn blood, but he wasn't out yet. The cabin hummed with late flight fatigue, passengers buried in screens or dozing under dim lights. Marcus felt the weight of isolation, the economy section a maze of averted eyes and whispered judgments. Vanessa was back in first class, her platinum bun a distant glint through the curtain, but her presence lingered like a storm cloud. Brian and Chloe moved through the aisles, their glances sharper now, as if Marcus's defiance had marked him for worse. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, replaying the frisking. They'd found nothing, but that wasn't the goal. Vanessa wanted him small, silenced, erased. He'd built Apex Pulse from nothing, cracked servers in basements, outsmarted rivals who saw him as less. He wouldn't let her win. A soft tap broke his thoughts. He looked up to see a young woman, maybe 20, standing in the aisle. Her dark curls were pulled into a messy ponytail, her oversized hoodie dwarfing her frame. Her name tag, pinned, crookedly, read Elena, another attendant, one he hadn't noticed before. She held a bottled water, her fingers fidgeting as she glanced toward the galley. "This isn't right," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the jet's drone. "What they're doing to you. It's wrong." She pushed the bottle toward him, her eyes darting to Brian, who was restocking napkins 10 rows away. Marcus took the water, his guard up but his chest loosening. "Thanks," he said, matching her whisper. "Why risk this?" Elena bit her lip. "I've seen her do this before. Not this bad, but..." "I'm sorry." She slipped away before he could respond. her sneakers silent on the carpet. Marcus held the bottle, its cool plastic grounding him. Elena's words, her small act, were a spark in the dark. For the first time since Miami, he wasn't alone. He twisted the cap, the crack loud in the quiet cabin, and took a sip. The navy polo woman glanced over, her lips pursing, but Marcus ignored her. Elena's defiance, however brief, shifted something. He wasn't just surviving now, he was fighting. His primary phone, tucked in his suit's inner pocket, was still intact, unlike the tablet. He pulled it out, its matte black case sleek against his palm, and opened a secure app. Apex Pulse's logo pulsed green, a lifeline to his team. He typed a message to his lead analyst, Quinn. Trace Horizon Elite crew records. Vanessa Kendrick, Brian Fields, Chloe Reyes. Complaints, patterns, anything. Urgent. The plane's Wi-Fi was spotty, but the message sent. A faint chime confirming delivery. Marcus leaned back, a surge of control warming his veins. Quinn's team was relentless. They'd dig up Vanessa's history, find cracks in her armor. If Elena was right, if this wasn't Vanessa's first time, there'd be a trail. He pictured the data rolling in, complaints buried by corporate, whispers of bias ignored for years. He'd use it to turn the tables, to make her answer for every smirk, every slight. The flannel shirt guy shifted 3 rows ahead, his snores cutting through the cabin, oblivious to the war Marcus was waging. The teenage girl, her phone now dark, watched him curiously, as if sensing a shift. Marcus allowed himself a small nod. He had a plan. But Vanessa was always watching. Marcus didn't see her approach, didn't hear her heels over the lavatory's hum. She appeared beside his seat, her shadow falling across his tray. "Mr. Everett," she said, her voice low and venomous. "You're using unauthorized communication." Her eyes flicked to his phone, still open to the Apex Pulse app. Marcus's pulse spiked, but he kept his grip steady. "It's within policy," he said. "No interference, no issue." Vanessa's smile was a blade. "Not on my flight," she said. "Hand it over. It's a security risk." Marcus stared, her words a punch. The cabin stirred, passengers peeking over seats, the navy polo man straightening with interest. "This isn't protocol," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. "You know it." Vanessa leaned closer, her perfume sharp. "I decide protocol," she said. "Give me the phone or I'll have you restrained." Her threat wasn't idle. Brian was already moving, toward them, his smirk replaced by a hard glare. Marcus weighed his options. The phone was his last link to Quinn, to Apex Pulse, to any chance of fighting back. But resisting now, with the cabin watching, would give her an excuse to escalate. Further, he glanced at Elena, who stood frozen near the galley, her face pale. She met his eyes, then looked away, her shoulders hunching under Vanessa's stare. The spark of support snuffed out. Marcus handed over the phone, his fingers brushing Vanessa's cold palm. She took it, her smile widening, and slipped it into her blazer pocket. "Thank you," she said, loud enough for the flannel shirt guy to grunt in approval. "We'll return it after review, per safety guidelines." She turned away, her heels clicking triumphantly, Brian trailing her like a shadow. Marcus sat, his hands empty, the cabin's hum swallowing him whole. The navy polo couple whispered, their words lost but their smirks clear. The teenage girl lowered her gaze, her phone tucked away. Elena stayed by the galley, her head bowed, her silence louder than any apology. He stared at the tray, the cold chicken blurring in his vision. The phone's loss was a gut punch, worse than the frisking, worse than the tablet. It wasn't just a device. It was his lifeline, his proof, his way to strike back. Without it, he was cut off, stranded at 35,000 feet with Vanessa, holding all the cards. He'd thought Elena's gesture meant something, a crack in the wall. But Vanessa's reach was absolute, her crew loyal, her passengers complicit. Marcus clenched his fists, his knuckles whitening. Apex Pulse had faced hacks, lawsuits, sabotage. He'd survived them all. But this wasn't a server he could reboot. This was personal, and Vanessa knew it. The cabin lights flickered, the jet hitting a pocket of turbulence. Marcus felt the jolt in his chest, a reminder of how fragile his position was. He had no tablet, no phone, no allies. Vanessa's smile as she took his phone replayed in his mind, her confidence unshakable. She'd crushed his spark of hope, turned Elena's courage into fear, and left him with nothing but a stained seat and a cold tray. But Marcus Everett didn't build an empire by folding. He'd find another way, another angle. The flight wasn't over, and neither was he. But what could he do with nothing left to wield? Marcus Everett sat rigid in row 32D, the Horizon Elite Jet's lavatory hum a grating pulse that matched the ache in his temples. The air was thick with disinfectant and defeat, the cold chicken tray still untouched on the wobbling table. Before him, Vanessa Kendrick's latest blow, confiscating his phone, had severed his link to Apex Pulse, leaving him stranded at 35,000 feet with no tablet, no evidence, no allies. The public frisking, the sabotaged tablet, Elena's fleeting support turned to silence. They were all pieces of Vanessa's game, each move sharper than the last. His charcoal suit felt like armor now, creased and heavy, but Marcus held his posture firm. He'd built an empire against odds like these. He'd find a way to fight, even if the cabin felt like a closing trap. The plane's cabin was a dim maze of flickering screens and restless passengers, their whispers quieter now as the flight from Miami to Seattle stretched into its fourth hour. The Navy polo couple dozed in their upgraded seats, their wine glasses empty, while the flannel shirt guy snored 3 rows ahead, oblivious to the war Marcus waged. Vanessa was out of sight, her platinum bun hidden behind the first-class curtain, but her presence lingered, a shadow over every glance. Brian and Chloe moved through the aisles, their eyes skimming Marcus like he was a problem they'd already solved. He leaned back, his fingers tracing the edge of his briefcase, searching for a spark. Elena's water bottle, still unopened, sat beside the tray, a small gesture that had promised hope, then crumbled under Vanessa's glare. Footsteps broke his thoughts, heavy and deliberate. Marcus looked up to see a man in pilot blues approaching, his silver wings catching the cabin lights. He was young, maybe 30, with a square jaw and a cocky tilt to his shoulders. His name tag read Greg, co-pilot. Marcus tensed, expecting another jab, but Greg's expression was softer, almost apologetic. "Mr. Everett," he said, his voice low, "I heard about the mix-up with your phone. That wasn't right." Marcus studied him, his guard up. Greg glanced toward the galley, where Chloe was stacking trays, then leaned closer. "I'll talk to Vanessa," he said. "Get your phone back after we review it. No need for this to escalate further." Marcus's pulse quickened, but he kept his face neutral. "Why the change?" he asked. Greg shrugged, his smile tight. "Just trying to keep things smooth. You don't deserve this hassle." Marcus nodded slowly, weighing Greg's words. It could be a trick, another layer of Vanessa's control, but Greg's unease seemed real. His eyes flicked to the galley again, as if checking for witnesses. "All right," Marcus said. "I appreciate that." Greg offered a curt nod, then headed back toward the cockpit, his stride less confident than before. Marcus exhaled, a flicker of hope igniting. If Greg was genuine, if he could sway Vanessa, Marcus might regain his phone, his lifeline. He pictured Quinn's team waiting for his signal, their servers ready to dig into Vanessa's past. A small win, but enough to shift the tide. He allowed himself a moment to relax, his shoulders loosening against the worn seat. The meal cart rattled back to life, Chloe pushing it with a forced smile. Marcus waved her off, but Greg reappeared, intercepting her before she moved on. He leaned in, whispering something, and Chloe nodded, pulling a new tray from the cart's lower shelf. Greg brought it to Marcus himself, his grin almost boyish. "Thought you deserved better than that mess," he said, setting down a premium meal, steaming chicken breast, roasted potatoes, a warm roll. "It's not first class, but it's something." Marcus eyed the tray, its aroma a stark contrast to the cold lump he'd been given. "Thanks," he said, his voice cautious but grateful. Greg clapped his shoulder lightly. "Eat up," he said, then walked away, disappearing behind the economy curtain. Marcus stared at the food, his instincts warring. Greg's gesture felt like a lifeline, a sign the crew wasn't a monolith. He picked up the fork, the metal cool against his palm, and took a bite. The chicken was tender, the potatoes rich, a taste of dignity after hours of slights. He ate slowly, savoring the moment, the cabin's hum fading to a background murmur. The navy polo woman glanced over, her lips pursing, but Marcus ignored her. For the first time since boarding, he felt human again, not a target. He set the fork down, half the tray gone, and leaned back, a plan forming. If Greg delivered the phone, Marcus could escalate, send Quinn the crew's names, start building a case. He was back in the game, but the cabin tilted, a subtle sway that wasn't turbulence. Marcus's vision blurred, his head heavy, like he'd stepped into fog. He gripped the armrest, his knuckles whitening, as a dull ache spread through his chest. The tray swam before him, the chicken's sheen suddenly wrong. His mouth went dry, a bitter aftertaste coating his tongue. He blinked hard, forcing focus, but the cabin spun faster, faces smearing into streaks. The navy polo man stared, his smirk returning. The teenage girl lifted her phone, filming again. Marcus's hands trembled, his breath shallow. This wasn't exhaustion. It was something else. Vanessa's voice crackled over the intercom, sharp and clinical. "Attention passengers," she said. "We're addressing a medical issue in economy. Please remain seated and cooperative." Marcus's stomach lurched. Medical issue. He forced his eyes open, spotting Vanessa at the galley's edge, her smile cold as ice. Greg stood beside her, his cocky grin back, no trace of the apology he'd offered. Marcus's mind raced, piecing it together. The meal, Greg's gift, wasn't kindness. It was a setup, laced with something to dull him, to break him. His vision darkened, but he saw the flannel shirt guy lean forward, whispering to his seatmate. "Looks drunk," he said, loud enough to carry. "Probably shouldn't be here." The cabin erupted in murmurs, passengers craning to see. "He's out of it," the navy polo woman said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Always something with these guys." Marcus tried to stand, to speak, but his legs buckled, the tray clattering to the floor. Chloe rushed over, her face a mask of fake concern, while Brian loomed behind, his smirk a blade. Vanessa stepped closer, her heels clicking like a countdown. "Sir," she said loudly, "you're unwell. We'll need to isolate you for everyone's safety." Marcus shook his head, his voice a rasp. "You did this," he said, barely audible. Vanessa's smile didn't waver. "I'm just following protocol," she said, as passengers nodded, their gossip a rising tide. Marcus slumped back, the cabin spinning into shadows. The sedative, mild but deliberate, clouded his thoughts, his strength draining with every breath. Vanessa had turned Greg's apology into poison, his gesture of hope into a trap. The passengers' whispers grew louder, their words a chorus of blame. "Should have known better," one said. "Can't handle himself," said another. Marcus's hands fell limp, the water bottle rolling under the seat. He'd thought he'd gained ground, that Greg's offer was a crack in Vanessa's armor, but she'd played him, and now he was defenseless, labeled a problem, a drunk, a threat. Apex Pulse's founder, reduced to a slurring shadow. The lavatory's hum roared in his ears, a reminder of his cage. Vanessa's silhouette loomed, her victory absolute. She'd taken his phone, his tablet, his dignity. Now she'd taken his clarity, painting him as unfit to even sit among them. The cabin watched, complicit, their silence a heavier blow than their words. Marcus's eyes fluttered, fighting the haze. He'd survived worse, hostile takeovers, coded traps, betrayal. But this was a new kind of war, and Vanessa held every weapon. He clung to one thought: this wasn't the end. He'd fight back somehow. But how, when his own body betrayed him? Marcus Everett slumped in row 32D, the Horizon Elite Jet's lavatory hum a cruel metronome against the fog in his skull. The sedative laced in Greg's premium meal clung to him like damp cloth, blurring his vision and weighing his limbs. Vanessa Kendrick's voice still echoed, her clinical announcement of a medical issue painting him as a stumbling drunk, while passengers whispered and smirked. The Navy polo couple's disdain, the flannel shirt guy's loud "probably shouldn't be here," the teenage girl's phone capturing his haze. They'd all bought Vanessa's lie, their complicity a heavier blow than the drug. His tablet was dead, his phone confiscated, his dignity shredded. The Miami to Seattle flight felt like a prison, and Marcus was running out of moves, but Apex Pulse hadn't risen by surrendering, and neither would he. The cabin swam in dim light, passengers dozing or scrolling through screens as the jet sliced through the night. The lavatory's disinfectant stink mixed with the spilled gravy. On Marcus's tray, a reminder of every slight piled on since boarding. Vanessa's public frisking, the sabotage tablet, Elena's crush support, Greg's poisoned meal. Each was a calculated strike, her platinum bun and cold smile the banner of her control. Marcus blinked hard, forcing his eyes to focus. His hands trembled, but his mind clawed through the haze, searching for leverage. He'd lost his phone, his data, his clarity, but not everything. Tucked beneath his suit cuff, his smartwatch gleamed, a prototype Apex Pulse had built for emergencies, encrypted and undetectable. It was his last card. He shifted, his creased charcoal suit sticking to the seat's worn fabric, and tapped, the watch's face. The screen lit up, a faint green pulse greeting him like an old friend. His fingers, sluggish but precise, navigated to a secure app. One Quinn's team had coded for worst-case scenarios. He typed an SOS. Flight 849 compromised. Activate Protocol C7. Trace crew. Kendrick, Fields, Reyes. Full history. Ground support needed. The message was a gamble. Plane Wi-Fi was weak, and Vanessa's crew was watching. But Marcus had no choice. He hit send, the watch vibrating softly as the signal fought to connect. A chime confirmed delivery, and Marcus exhaled, a spark of defiance cutting through the sedative's weight. Quinn would move fast, digging into Vanessa's past, finding dirt to flip this nightmare. The cabin stirred, a passenger coughing, another, adjusting a blanket. Marcus glanced around, his vision still fuzzy. The Navy polo man slept, his wine glass tipped over, while the flannel shirt guy muttered in his dreams, oblivious to the war Marcus waged. Chloe hovered near the galley, her nervous fidget back, her eyes avoiding his row. Brian was nowhere in sight, likely basking in Vanessa's approval. Marcus leaned back, the watch's glow hidden under his cuff, and waited. If Quinn found something, a complaint, a pattern, he'd have leverage to fight back. He pictured Vanessa's smirk faltering, her authority cracking. The thought kept him anchored, his pulse steadying despite the drug's pull. Minutes passed, the jet's hum a constant drone. Marcus's head throbbed, but the fog was lifting, his body burning through the sedative's edge. He flexed his fingers, testing his grip, when Vanessa appeared. Her heels silent this time, her presence sudden as a blade. She stood over him, her blazer crisp, her smile gone. "Mr. Everett," she said, her voice low and venomous. "You're persistent. I admire that." Marcus met her gaze, his jaw tight. "What do you want?" he rasped, his throat dry. Vanessa tilted her head, studying him like prey. "I want order," she said. "You're disrupting it. I know about your little message." His stomach dropped, the watch's glow suddenly heavy on his wrist. She leaned closer, her perfume sharp, her words for him alone. "Wi-Fi logs don't lie," she said. "You think you're clever, reaching out to whoever's on the other end, but you're on my plane." Marcus's mind raced. How had she known? The watch was encrypted, its signal masked, but Vanessa's confidence was unshakable, her eyes glinting with triumph. He forced his voice steady. "You've got nothing," he said. She laughed, a soft, chilling sound. "I've got everything," she said, "including this." She held up his phone, confiscated hours ago, its screen flashing with a notification. Marcus's message to Quinn glowed briefly before she pocketed it again, her smile returning. He stood, ignoring the dizziness, his frame towering over her. "Give it back," he said, loud enough for the flannel shirt guy to stir. Vanessa didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped back, her voice rising. "You're threatening me, Mr. Everett. That's a mistake." Before he could respond, Brian materialized, his buzz cut gleaming, his hand on a walkie-talkie. Chloe hovered behind, her eyes wide. Marcus saw the trap closing, but he pressed forward, his desperation fueling him. "You've crossed lines," he said, his voice clear despite the haze. "I've got proof. Vanessa's history, complaints, bias, worse. My team's pulling it now. You're done." Vanessa's eyes narrowed, a flicker of unease breaking her mask. Marcus seized it, stepping closer. "Apex Pulse doesn't play games," he said. "We find truth, like the passengers you've targeted before me." He was bluffing. Quinn hadn't sent data yet, but the gamble worked. Vanessa froze, her lips parting, then snapped her jaw shut. "You're delusional," she said, but her voice wavered. Marcus pressed harder. "Return my phone, or I'll make sure every name on this crew hits the news." Brian shifted, his smirk gone, while Chloe clutched her clipboard, her knuckles white. The cabin watched, a few passengers leaning forward, the teenage girl's phone creeping out again. Vanessa exhaled, her composure returning like armor. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the phone and handed it to Marcus, her fingers brushing his with deliberate slowness. "Fine," she said, her smile tight. "Take it. But don't think this changes anything." Marcus took the phone, its weight, a lifeline, and sat, his hand steady despite the tremor in his chest. He'd won it back, broken through her wall. The navy polo woman stared, her lips pursed, while the flannel shirt guy muttered something about trouble. Marcus ignored them, opening the phone to check Quinn's reply. A message waited. "Digging now. Kendrick's got a file. 3 complaints buried. More coming." He nodded, a surge of triumph cutting through the haze. He was back in the fight, but Vanessa wasn't done. As Marcus typed a response to Quinn, the intercom crackled, her voice slicing through the cabin. "Attention, ground crew," she said. Her tone clipped. "We have a security concern on Flight 849. Passenger in row 32D, Marcus Everett, requires detainment upon landing. Suspicious activity reported." The cabin erupted in gasps, passengers turning, phones flashing. Marcus froze, the phone slipping in his grip. Detainment? Vanessa stood at the galley's edge, her smile cold as steel. Greg beside her, his cocky grin a mirror of her triumph. The navy polo man clapped once, sharp and approving, while the teenage girl filmed, her eyes wide. Marcus's triumph shattered, the phone's glow mocking him. He thought he'd cornered Vanessa, forced her hand. But she'd played him, giving him the phone to lower his guard, all while setting a trap far worse. Detainment meant cuffs, headlines, a stain on Apex Pulse's name. The sedative's haze lingered, but fear cut through it, his heart pounding. He looked at Chloe, hoping for a crack, but she turned away, her clipboard a shield. Brian cracked, his knuckles ready to enforce whatever came next. The cabin's whispers grew louder, dangerous, unhinged, should have known. Each word a nail in Marcus's coffin. He clutched the phone, Quinn's message his only anchor. Vanessa had escalated, turning his defiance into a threat, her power absolute. She'd taken his seat, his tablet, his clarity, and now his freedom hung by a thread. The jet's hum roared in his ears, a reminder of his cage. Marcus had survived hostile boards, cyber attacks, betrayals. But this was a new abyss, and Vanessa held the edge. He'd fought back, won a scrap of ground only to lose more. Apex Pulse taught him to pivot, to adapt. He'd need it now, more than ever. Marcus Everett gripped his phone in row 32D, the Horizon Elite Jet's lavatory hum a mocking pulse that drowned out his racing thoughts. Vanessa Kendrick's intercom announcement, detainment upon landing, hung like a noose, her cold voice branding him a security threat as passengers gasped and glared. The navy polo couple's approving clap. The flannel shirt guys muttered agreement. The teenage girl's relentless filming. They'd all swallowed Vanessa's lie, their complicity a wall closing in. His smartwatch SOS had won back his phone, a fleeting triumph. But Vanessa's trap was tighter now, threatening cuffs and headlines that could gut Apex Pulse. The sedative's haze lingered, but Marcus's charcoal suit, creased and heavy, was his last shred of armor. He'd clawed through worse, corporate sabotage, coded traps, but this was a cage at 35,000 feet, and Vanessa held the key. The cabin pulsed with tension, passengers whispering as the jet sliced toward Seattle, its fifth hour dragging like a sentence. The lavatory's disinfectant stink mixed with the cold gravy on Marcus's tray, a reminder of every blow since Miami. The seat downgrade, the tablet sabotage, the public frisking, the poisoned meal. Vanessa was back in first class, her platinum spun a distant glint, but her power radiated through Brian's smirks and Chloe's averted eyes. Marcus glanced at his phone. Quinn's message, 3 buried complaints against Vanessa, his only leverage. Detainment loomed, but he wasn't done. Apex Pulse thrived on exposure, on turning shadows into light. He'd show the world who Vanessa really was. He opened a secure app, its green logo a beacon, and activated a live stream protocol, one his team had built for whistleblowers. The plane's Wi-Fi was weak, but Marcus angled the phone, capturing the tray's congealed mess, the cracked armrest, the flickering exit sign. "This is Marcus Everett," he said softly, his voice steady, despite the haze. "Flight 849, Horizon Elite. I've been targeted, downgraded, searched, drugged, all for existing in the wrong seat." He panned to the galley, where Chloe stacked cups, her hands trembling. "The crew's history proves it," he said. "Complaints buried, passengers silenced. This ends now." The stream flickered, buffering, but a green dot confirmed it was live, reaching Quinn's servers, maybe beyond. Passengers stirred, sensing something shift. A woman in a red scarf 2 rows back leaned forward, her eyes curious rather than hostile. A man with earbuds paused his movie, watching Marcus's phone glow. The teenage girl, her own device dark, mouthed wow, her hostility softening. Marcus felt a surge of hope, their attention a crack in Vanessa's armor. If the stream reached Quinn, it could hit social feeds, expose Vanessa before landing. He kept talking, detailing the frisking, Greg's betrayal, the detainment threat. "My company, Apex Pulse, finds truth," he said. "We're pulling their records now. This isn't just my fight, it's everyone's." The red scarf woman nodded slightly, her face conflicted but open. The cabin's hum faltered, a sudden silence swallowing the jet's drone. Marcus's phone blinked. Connection lost. He tapped the screen, his pulse spiking, but the Wi-Fi icon was gray, the stream dead. Vanessa's voice crackled over the intercom, calm but razor sharp. "Attention passengers," she said. "Due to a technical issue, we've disabled onboard Wi-Fi. Please stow all devices immediately for safety." Marcus froze, his phone heavy in his hand. Passengers groaned, tucking away tablets, but their eyes turned to him, suspicion replacing curiosity. The red scarf woman leaned back, her nod gone. The earbuds guy glared, muttering about delays. The teenage girl resumed filming, her awe now, accusation. Vanessa emerged from the galley, her heels clicking like a verdict, Brian trailing her with a walkie-talkie. She stopped near Marcus's row, her smile cold as frost. "Mr. Everett," she said loudly, "your device is causing interference. Stow it now or we'll confiscate it again." Marcus met her gaze, his jaw tight. "This is retaliation," he said, loud enough for the flannel shirt guy to stir. "You cut the Wi-Fi to silence me." Vanessa's smile didn't waver. "Safety first," she said, her tone a performance for the cabin. "We can't risk disruptions." Brian stepped closer, his hand hovering near Marcus's phone, daring him to resist. The Navy polo man stood, his voice booming. "He's messing with the plane, isn't he?" he said, pointing at Marcus. "I heard about hackers like that, screwing up systems from their seats." The cabin erupted, passengers gasping, phones flashing. "He's hacking the flight?" A woman in a denim jacket shrieked, clutching her armrest. The flannel shirt guy bolted upright, his face red. "Get him off this plane!" he yelled. Marcus's chest tightened, the accusations a tidal wave. "I'm not hacking," he said, his voice firm but drowned by panic. I'm exposing her. He pointed at Vanessa, but she stepped back, her face a mask of concern. Sir, calm down, she said. You're scaring everyone. The red scarf woman shrank into her seat, her earlier sympathy gone. The earbuds guy ripped out his plugs, shouting, "Do something before he crashes us!" The teenage girl's camera shook, her feed now a frenzy of fear. Marcus stood, his phone raised, trying to restart the stream, but Brian lunged, shoving him back into the seat. "Stay down," he hissed, his breath hot. "You're done." Chloe hovered nearby, her clipboard shaking, her silence deafening. Vanessa raised a hand, her voice soothing but lethal. "We've alerted security," she said. "They'll handle this upon landing. Please everyone remain calm. We're in control." The cabin boiled, passengers yelling, some standing, others cowering. "He's dangerous!" A man in a tracksuit shouted, his fist clenched. "Why'd they let him on?" The navy polo woman nodded, her wine glass trembling. "I knew he didn't belong," she said, loud enough for all to hear. Marcus's vision darkened, not from the sedative but from the mob's weight. His stream had failed, his hope of exposure snuffed out. Vanessa had turned his defiance into chaos, painting him as a terrorist, a pariah. The flannel shirt guy leaned over, spitting, "Should have stayed in your place." Marcus's hands shook, his phone useless without signal. He sank back, the lavatory's hum roaring in his ears. Vanessa's smile lingered, her victory absolute. She'd taken his seat, his tablet, his phone, his clarity, and now his voice, twisting his truth into a threat that rallied the cabin against him. Ground security waited in Seattle, ready to cuff him, while passengers saw only a villain, not a victim. Apex Pulse had faced crises, hacks, leaks, betrayals, but this was a new hell, a mob fueled by Vanessa's lies. Marcus clutched his phone, its dead screen a mirror of his options. He'd tried to fight, to shine light, but darkness won. Yet something burned in him still, a refusal to break. But what could one man do against a crowd? This story's heating up, and we want to hear from you. Comment with a 1 if you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, and let's show Marcus he's not alone. Has someone ever twisted your truth to silence you? Drop a 2 below and hit like and subscribe to see justice unfold. Every voice counts. Join us as we fight for what's right. What happens when a single spark of truth ignites a fire nobody can control? Marcus Everett sat pinned in row 32D, the Horizon Elite Jet's lavatory hum a relentless grind against his fraying nerves. The cabin's air was thick with fear and accusation, Vanessa Kendrick's Wi-Fi cut, and the Navy Polo Man's hacking claim turning passengers into a mob. Their shouts, "He's dangerous, should have known," echoed over the failed live stream, branding Marcus a terrorist as phones flashed and eyes burned. His phone, now useless without signal, lay heavy in his hand, a bitter reminder of his crushed hope. Ground security awaited in Seattle, primed to cuff him, while Vanessa's platinum bun glinted through the chaos, her smile a silent victory. His charcoal suit clung to him, creased and damp, but Marcus's mind clung to defiance. Apex Pulse had survived traps before. He'd find a way out, even if the walls were closing in. The jet sliced through the night, its 6th hour dragging, toward Seattle like a guillotine. The lavatory's disinfectant stench mixed with the cold gravy on Marcus's tray, a monument to every blow, the seat downgrade, the sabotaged tablet, the public frisking, the poisoned meal, the detainment threat. Vanessa's crew, Brian's smirks, Chloe's silence, Greg's betrayal, wove a net of control, and the passengers were her pawns. The flannel shirt guy leaned forward, his red face twisted, muttering about safety risks. The teenage girl filmed relentlessly, her lens a cold judge. The Navy Polo couple whispered, their wine-soaked confidence unshaken, while the red scarf woman from earlier avoided Marcus's gaze, her brief sympathy buried. He was alone, his options razor-thin. Marcus's fingers brushed his smartwatch. Its screen dark but still functional. The Wi-Fi was down, but he had one last play, something Vanessa couldn't monitor. He pulled a pen from his briefcase, its silver clip dented from the bag search, and grabbed a napkin from the tray, its edge stained with grease. His hands shook, the sedative's ghost lingering. but he steadied them, scribbling a coded message. C7 active. K's file critical. Ground ETA 90 Minier relay Q. It was Apex Pulse shorthand, unreadable to outsiders, meant for Quinn's eyes. If he could get it off the plane, his team might intercept security, expose Vanessa before cuffs snapped shut. But how? The cabin was a minefield. Every move watched. A figure shuffled past, a cleaner in a gray uniform, her head bowed as she swept crumbs from the aisle. Her name tag read, Marla. Her face lined with fatigue, her eyes flicking nervously toward Brian at the galley. Marcus caught her glance, a flicker of something. Pity, maybe guilt. She wasn't part of Vanessa's inner circle, just a worker caught in the storm. He leaned forward, his voice a whisper. "Can you help me?" he said, holding her gaze. Marla froze, her broom pausing, then nodded slightly, her lips tight. Marcus slipped the napkin into her hand, his fingers brushing her calloused palm. "Get this to the crew hatch," he said. "It's urgent." Marla tucked it into her apron, her eyes darting. To Chloe, then back to Marcus. "I'll try," she whispered, before moving on, her broom scraping softly. Marcus exhaled, a surge of triumph cutting through the haze. Marla was a long shot, but she was his only shot. If the napkin reached the hatch, a ground crew might find it, pass it to Quinn's network. He pictured Vanessa's complaints file hitting feeds, her smirk crumbling as Apex Pulse's truth machine roared to life. The flannel shirt guy coughed, oblivious, while the teenage girl lowered her phone, her interest fading. The navy polo man adjusted his seat, muttering about delays, his wife nodding smugly. Marcus leaned back, the lavatory's hum a faint anchor. He'd done it, slipped past Vanessa's net, planted a seed that could burn her down. For the first time in hours he felt alive. But Vanessa was always steps ahead. The cabin lights flickered, a routine check announced over the intercom in Chloe's shaky voice. Brian appeared, pushing a cart, his buzz cut gleaming as he stopped near Marcus's row. "Routine inspection," he said loudly, his smirk a blade. "Open your briefcase, Everett." Marcus's gut twisted, but he complied, unzipping the case under Brian's stare. Chloe joined him, her clipboard clutched tight, while Vanessa watched from the galley, her arms crossed, her eyes glinting. Brian rummaged through the briefcase, his hands rough, tossing Marcus's notebook aside. "What's this?" he said, pulling out a small plastic bag, white powder inside, sealed tight. Marcus's breath stopped. "That's not mine," he said, his voice sharp but drowned by gasps. The cabin erupted, passengers craning, phones flashing. "He's smuggling!" The navy polo woman shrieked, her wine glass clattering. "I knew it!" the flannel shirt guy roared, standing, his fist raised. Marcus stood, his hands up, his mind racing. "You planted that," he said, pointing at Brian, then Vanessa. "This is a setup." But Vanessa stepped forward, her voice calm but lethal. "We've notified security," she said, addressing the crowd. "This passenger poses a clear risk. Ground teams will handle him upon landing. Felony charges, I suspect." Her smile was ice, her triumph absolute. The teenage girl filmed, her lens shaking, while the red scarf woman turned away, her face pale. Marcus's chest tightened, the bag a death sentence. Felony charges meant prison, his company ruined, his name erased. He looked at Marla, sweeping, near the galley, her eyes wide with fear. She shook her head, barely noticeable, her hand empty, the napkin gone. Vanessa's gaze flicked to her, a silent warning, and Marla shrank back, her broom trembling. Marcus's triumph shattered. Marla had betrayed him, or Vanessa had intercepted the napkin, turning his desperate play into dust. He sat, the briefcase open, the powder glinting like a lie. Brian zipped the case, his smirk wider. "Should have stayed quiet," he muttered, loud enough for the navy polo man to nod. The cabin's chaos grew, passengers shouting, some banging armrests. "Get him out now!" a woman in denim yelled, her voice shrill. "He's a criminal," the flannel shirt guy added, his spit flecking the air. Marcus's vision blurred, not from drugs, but from the mob's weight. Vanessa had taken everything, his seat, his tablet, his phone's power, his clarity, and now she'd framed him for a crime that could end him. The Navy polo couple stared, their smugness a mirror of Vanessa's. Control. Chloe clutched her clipboard, her silence complicit while Brian loomed, ready to pounce if Marcus moved. Marcus's hands fell to his lap, the smartwatch cold against his wrist. Marla's betrayal cut deeper than the powder, her fear proving Vanessa's reach. The jet's hum roared, a reminder of his cage. Ground security wasn't just detainment now. It was a cell, a trial, a life undone. Apex Pulse had dodged bullets, hacks, leaks, rivals. But this was a guillotine, and Vanessa held the rope. He'd gambled on Marla, on truth, and lost. The cabin watched, their fear and hate a chorus Vanessa conducted. Marcus's jaw clenched, his mind scraping for a way out. He wasn't broken yet, but the edge was close, and Vanessa knew it. What could he do when every move was a trap? Marcus Everett sat frozen in row 32D. The Horizon Elite jet's lavatory hum a mocking roar that drowned his pounding heart. The plastic bag of white powder, Vanessa Kendrick's planted contraband, glinted in his open briefcase, a felony charge waiting to ruin him. The cabin's chaos pulsed, passengers shouting he's a criminal as phones flashed. The flannel shirt guy's spit-flecked rage, and the Navy polo couple's smug nods fueling the mob. Vanessa's icy announcement of ground security for smuggling. Charges had turned Marla's betrayal into a guillotine, her intercepted napkin message a final blow. Marcus's charcoal suit was a tattered shield, his hands steady, but his mind teetering. Apex Pulse had dodged traps, but this was a death sentence at 35,000 feet, and Vanessa held the blade. The jet barreled toward Seattle, its final hour ticking like a bomb. The lavatory's disinfectant reeked, mingling with the cold gravy on Marcus's tray, a monument to every attack. The seat downgrade, the sabotage tablet, the public frisking, the poisoned meal, the mob's hacking panic. Vanessa's crew, Brian's menace, Chloe's complicity, Greg's poison, wove a net of hate, and passengers were her chorus. The teenage girl filmed, her lens a cold jury, while the red scarf woman huddled in her seat, her earlier curiosity dead. Marcus's smartwatch, his last lifeline after the phone's Wi-Fi death, was a faint pulse under his cuff. Felony charges meant prison. Apex Pulse shattered, his name erased. He had to act now. Marcus's eyes darted to the briefcase, the powder bag a ticking grenade. Vanessa stood at the galley, her platinum bun gleaming, her smile a quiet dare. Brian loomed nearby, his buzz cut sharp under the lights, his walkie-talkie crackling with ground orders. Marcus knew the play. Security would search him on landing, find the bag, end him. But he wasn't a pawn. He grabbed the bag, its plastic crinkling, and stood, his legs shaky from the sedative's ghost. The flannel shirt guy glared, muttering trouble, but Marcus ignored him, weaving toward the lavatory. The door clicked shut, the tiny space a brief sanctuary. He tore the bag open, dumping the powder into the toilet, its white swirl vanishing with a flush. His pulse raced, relief spiking. He dodged the frame-up, kept his hands clean. He washed his hands, the water cold against his knuckles, and checked his reflection. Eyes bloodshot, suit creased, but resolve intact. The powder was gone. Vanessa's trap empty. He'd face security with nothing to hide, maybe buy time for Quinn's crew records to surface. He stepped back into the aisle, the cabin's hum louder now, passengers watching like hawks. The Navy polo man leaned forward, whispering to his wife, probably drugs, while the teenage girl's phone tracked Marcus's return. He sat, his briefcase, zipped and pulled out his smartwatch, its screen a lifeline. The Wi-Fi was still down, but he opened a recording app, one Apex Pulse had built for covert ops. He spoke softly, his voice a blade. Marcus Everett, Flight 849. Vanessa Kendrick planted. Contraband targeted me from takeoff. Complaints file exists. 3 counts. Buried. I flushed her setup. This is my proof. The watch's green dot blinked, the file saving to its tiny drive. Marcus uploaded it to a secure server, a one-way burst that didn't need Wi-Fi, coded to reach Quinn's team post-landing. His chest loosened. He'd outsmarted Vanessa, preserved his truth. The flannel shirt guy coughed, oblivious, while the red scarf woman glanced over, her face unreadable. Marcus leaned back, the lavatory's hum a faint ally now. Security might detain him, but without evidence they'd falter, and Quinn's data would hit like a hammer. He pictured Vanessa's smirk fading, her lies exposed. For a moment he believed he'd turned the tide, that Apex Pulse's founder could still win. But Vanessa was a predator, and Marcus was prey. The intercom crackled, her voice slicing through the cabin like glass. "Attention passengers," she said, her tone grave. "We've detected tampering with onboard equipment. For your safety, we're initiating a lockdown. Remain seated." Marcus's stomach dropped, his smartwatch heavy on his wrist. Tampering? He'd flushed the powder, left no trace. Passengers gasped, phones flashing, the Navy polo woman shrieking sabotage. Vanessa appeared, flanked by Brian and a new figure, a man in plain clothes, his badge subtle but clear, Air Marshal. His eyes locked on Marcus, his hand resting on a holstered stun gun. "Mr. Everett," Vanessa said loudly, "CCTV caught you in the lavatory. You've endangered this flight." The cabin exploded, passengers screaming, some standing, others cowering. "He's a terrorist!" the flannel shirt guy roared, banging his armrest. "Get him!" a woman in denim yelled, her voice shrill. Marcus stood, his hands raised, his voice steady, but drowned. "I flushed your plant," he said, pointing at Vanessa. "You set me up." But her smile was steel, her eyes glinting. "You were seen tampering," she said, addressing the crowd. "We've alerted the captain. Marshals will handle this now." The marshal stepped closer, his stance rigid, his voice low. "Sit down, sir, or I'll restrain you." Brian cracked his knuckles, his smirk a mirror of Vanessa's triumph, while Chloe stood frozen, her clipboard useless. Marcus sat, his heart hammering, the smartwatch's glow mocking him. CCTV? The lavatory had no cameras, or so he'd thought. Vanessa had twisted his disposal into a crime, her lie spinning faster than he could counter. The Navy polo man clapped, his voice booming. "Knew he was trouble from the start," he said, his wife nodding. The teenage girl filmed, her lens shaking, while the red scarf woman turned away, her hands clasped tight. The marshal loomed, his stun gun a heartbeat away, as passengers chanted, "Lock him up," their fear a weapon Vanessa wielded. Marcus's video was safe, but useless without a signal, and ground security now saw him as a terrorist, not a smuggler. A death sentence in the air. The jet's hum roared, a cage tightening around him. Vanessa had taken everything. His seat, his tablet, his phone's reach, his clarity, his freedom. And now she'd taken his life's breath, framing him for a crime that could end in gunfire. The cabin's chaos was her orchestra, every shout a note she conducted. Marcus's hands gripped the armrests, his knuckles white. Apex Pulse had faced existential threats, hacks, leaks, coups. But this was annihilation, a mob and a marshal ready to bury him. He dodged the powder, saved his truth only to fall into a deeper trap. His smartwatch blinked, a faint hope, but Vanessa's eyes held no mercy. He wasn't broken, but he was close, and she knew it. The marshal's shadow fell over him, his voice a growl. "One move and you're done," he said, his hand steady on the stun gun. Marcus met his gaze, his mind scraping for an out. He'd built an empire on pivots, on seeing paths where others saw walls. But this path was a cliff, and Vanessa stood at the edge, smiling. The flannel shirt guy yelled again, his voice a blade, while the Navy polo couple watched, their smugness unshaken. The jet's hum swallowed Marcus's breath, a reminder of his prison. He'd fought, gambled, lost. Apex Pulse's founder, reduced to a target in a locked-down sky. He clung to one spark. Quinn might still move. But what could he do when death was one trigger pull away? Marcus Everett sat rigid in row 32D, the Horizon Elite jet's lavatory hum a deafening roar against the chaos swallowing him. The air marshal's stun gun loomed inches away, his growled warning, "One move, and you're done," echoing as passengers screamed terrorist and pounded armrests. Vanessa Kendrick's CCTV lie had turned Marcus's contraband disposal into a mid-flight lockdown, her platinum bun glinting as she orchestrated the mob's fury. The flannel shirt guy's lock him up chant, the navy polo couple's smug nods, the teenage girl's relentless filming, they'd all bought her story, branding Marcus a threat to the jet's survival. His charcoal suit was a tattered flag, his smartwatch video his only shield, uploaded but useless in this cage at 35,000 feet. Apex Pulse had faced annihilation before, but this was a firing squad, and Vanessa held the trigger. The cabin pulsed with panic. The jet's final hour to Seattle, a countdown to Marcus's ruin. The lavatory's disinfectant stink clung to his cold tray, a relic of every attack. The seat downgrade, the sabotage tablet, the public frisking, the poisoned meal, the smuggling frame. Vanessa's crew, Brian's menace, Chloe's silence, Greg's betrayal, wove a tapestry of hate, and passengers were her soldiers. The red scarf woman cowered, her earlier curiosity crushed, while the flannel shirt guy's red face twisted with rage. Marcus's phone was dead without Wi-Fi, his tablet gone, his napkin message betrayed by Marla. The marshal's eyes burned, his hand steady, ready to end this. Marcus's smartwatch, its video proof of Vanessa's lies, was his last play. But showing it now could provoke the mob further. He needed the captain. The marshal shifted, his badge catching the cabin lights, his voice low. "Hands up, Everett," he said. The stun guns hum a heartbeat away. Marcus raised his hands slowly, his voice calm despite the mob's roar. "I'm not the threat," he said, loud enough for Chloe to flinch at the galley's edge. "I've got proof. On my watch." Vanessa set me up. The marshal's eyes narrowed, but he didn't lower the weapon. Passengers shouted, "Get him out," drowning Marcus's words. Brian stepped closer, his buzz cut gleaming, his walkie-talkie crackling with ground orders. Vanessa stood behind, her smile cold, daring Marcus to try. He met her gaze, then turned to the marshal. "Let me show the captain," he said. "You'll see the truth." The marshal hesitated, his finger twitching on the stun gun. The flannel shirt guy yelled, "Don't listen to him," while the navy polo man clapped, his voice booming, "He's stalling." But a flicker crossed the marshal's face. Doubt, maybe caution. He grabbed Marcus's arm, yanking him up, the briefcase tumbling to the floor. "Move!" he barked, shoving Marcus toward the cockpit, the stun gun pressed to his back. Passengers jeered, phones flashing, the teenage girl's lens shaking. Vanessa followed, her heels clicking, her silence louder than the mob. Marcus clutched, his smartwatch, its weight his only anchor, as the cabin's chaos faded behind the economy curtain. The cockpit door loomed, a steel barrier guarded by Chloe, her clipboard trembling. She stepped aside, her eyes avoiding Marcus's, as the marshal knocked. The door opened, revealing Captain Ellis, a grizzled man with gray streaks and a frown carved deep. "What's this?" he said, his voice clipped, eyeing Marcus like a problem. The marshal shoved Marcus forward. "Passenger claims evidence," he said, nodding at the watch. "Says Kendrick framed him." Ellis raised an eyebrow, glancing at Vanessa, who stood poised, her smile unshaken. "Show me," Ellis said, his tone neutral but firm. Marcus tapped the watch, the screen glowing green, and played the video. His voice detailing Vanessa's downgrade, the tablet sabotage, the poisoned meal, the contraband plant, ending with, "I flushed," her setup. The cockpit fell silent. The jets hummed the only sound. Ellis watched, his jaw tightening, as Vanessa's lies unraveled. Her complaints file, her crew's collusion, her lethal setup. Marcus held his breath. The marshal's stun, gun still close. The video ended and Ellis leaned back, his eyes flicking to Vanessa. "This is serious," he said. "Marshal, stand down until we verify." The marshal lowered his weapon, his face hard but compliant. Marcus exhaled, relief flooding him. He'd done it, cracked Vanessa's armor, swayed the captain. The flannel shirt guy's chance faded outside, the mob's fury irrelevant. He pictured Quinn's team amplifying the video, Vanessa's career crumbling before landing. He was clear for now. Ellis turned to Vanessa, his voice low. "Explain this, Kendrick." She opened her mouth, her composure cracking, but before she could speak, the intercom crackled, her voice, impossibly, filling the cabin. "Attention passengers," it said, her tone, frantic but not live. "Marcus Everett has threatened the crew with violence. Stay calm. Security is handling it." The cockpit door burst open, Brian charging in, his walkie-talkie blaring. "She's right," he yelled, pointing at Marcus. "He said he'd crash the plane." Passengers screamed outside, their panic reigniting. "Take him down, he's crazy." Marcus's stomach dropped, the smartwatch heavy. The video was real, but Vanessa's audio was doctored. A fake clip spliced from his stream, twisted to sound like a threat. The marshal raised his stun gun again, his doubt gone. "Step back, Everett," he growled. Ellis hesitated, his frown deepening. But the cabin's chaos, banging seats, shrieking voices, overwhelmed him. Vanessa seized the moment, her smile returning, her voice loud for the mob. "He's unstable, Captain," she said. "We can't risk it." Marcus shook his head, his voice rising. "That's a lie," he said, pointing at her. "She faked it. Check the logs." But the flannel shirt guys lock him up roared louder, the navy polo woman's screams piercing. "Do something!" The teenage girl filmed, her lens a frenzy, as passengers pounded the walls, demanding Marcus's head. Ellis raised a hand, his voice sharp. "Everyone! Quiet!" he barked, but the mob's fury drowned him. "Marshal, hold him," he said, his tone conflicted. "We'll sort this on the ground." The marshal grabbed Marcus's arms, twisting them behind his back, the stun gun pressed tight. Marcus stumbled, his watch slipping, his victory ashes. Vanessa's audio had flipped the script, turning his truth into terror. Passengers chanted, their hate a tidal wave, while Brian smirked, his loyalty to Vanessa unshaken. Chloe stood frozen, her clipboard useless, her silence a betrayal. Marcus's chest tightened, the captain's stand down meaningless now. As the marshal dragged him back to row 32D, Marcus caught Vanessa's eye, her triumph absolute. But she wasn't. She leaned into Brian, whispering, her words lost but her intent clear. Minutes later, a new threat landed, silent, corporate, lethal. Marcus's phone, dead in his pocket, vibrated once, a rogue signal breaking through. A message from Quinn, Horizon exec tied to Kendrick, blacklisting Apex Pulse. Contract at risk. Marcus's blood ran cold. Vanessa's ally, some suit in a tower, was moving to crush his empire, not just his freedom. The flannel shirt guy jeered as Marcus sat, the marshal looming, the cabin's chaos a chorus of Vanessa's design. The jet's hum swallowed his breath, a cage tighter than ever. Vanessa had taken his seat, his tablet, his clarity, his voice, and now his company's future, her doctored audio a masterstroke. The marshal's stun gun hummed, a heartbeat from ending him, while passengers screamed for blood. Apex Pulse had survived wars, hacks, leaks, sabotage, but this was execution, a blacklist that could erase decades of work. Marcus's smartwatch lay on the floor, its video useless against Vanessa's lies. He'd swayed the captain, won a breath, only to choke on her retaliation. His hands gripped the armrests, his mind scraping for one last move, but the edge was here, and Vanessa stood, over it smiling. Marcus Everett sat shackled by fear in row 32D, the Horizon Elite jet's lavatory hum a death knell vibrating through his bones. The air marshal's stun gun hovered, its hum a heartbeat from silence, as passengers screamed for his blood. Vanessa Kendrick's doctored audio, he threatened the crew, fueling their chant of "take him down." The flannel shirt guy's red-faced rage, the navy polo couple's piercing shrieks, the teenage girl's relentless filming. They were Vanessa's mob, her lie turning Marcus's smartwatch truth into ash. The captain's brief stand-down had crumbled, and Quinn's warning of a Horizon executive's blacklist loomed, a blade to Apex Pulse's throat. Marcus's charcoal suit was a battered relic, his hands gripping the armrests, his mind clawing for air. Vanessa's platinum bun glinted at the galley's edge, her smile a guillotine, but Marcus wasn't done. Not yet. The jet roared toward Seattle, minutes from descent, its cabin a cauldron of hate. The lavatory's disinfectant stink clung to Marcus's cold tray, a shrine to every wound. The seat downgrade, The sabotage tablet, the public frisking, the poisoned meal, the smuggling, frame, the terrorist label, Vanessa's crew, Brian's menace, Chloe's cowardice, Greg's poison, were her fists, and passengers her venom. The red scarf woman cowered, her fleeting sympathy dead, while the flannel shirt guy pounded his seat, lock him up his war cry. Marcus's phone, revived by Quinn's rogue signal, buzzed again, a new message flashing. Exec ID'd, Roland Tate, Kendrick ally. Blacklist stopped. Tate's dirty. Exposing now. Marcus's pulse surged, a crack in Vanessa's armor. His team had moved, and he'd move with them. The marshal loomed, his stun gun steady, but Marcus's eyes locked on the intercom panel near the galley, its light blinking green. Apex Pulse thrived on disruption, on seizing systems others guarded. He leaned forward, his voice low, addressing the marshal. "Check my phone," he said, nodding at the device in his pocket. "My team's got evidence. Vanessa's exec is corrupt. You're being played." The marshal's jaw tightened, but he grabbed the phone, its screen glowing with Quinn's message. Tate's emails leaked. Payoffs, bias cover-ups. Feed live to cabin. The marshal's eyes widened, doubt flickering, but the flannel shirt guy's screams, "Do it now," drowned any pause. Marcus seized the moment, slipping past the marshal's grip, lunging for the intercom. He hit the button, his voice booming through the cabin, raw but commanding. "This is Marcus Everett," he said. Passengers freezing, phones wavering. "Vanessa Kendrick's been lying since takeoff. Downgraded me, drugged me, framed me. Her ally, Roland Tate, Horizons. Exec, buried her complaints to protect her. My team's got proof, leaked now, live, undeniable." He panned his phone, Quinn's feed streaming Tate's emails, dates, $signs, names of silenced passengers. The Navy polo man gasped, his clap silenced, while the red scarf woman sat up, her eyes wide. The teenage girl lowered her phone, her face conflicted. Vanessa's smile faltered, her hands clenching as Brian rushed toward Marcus, his buzz cut gleaming, his fist raised. Marcus kept talking, his voice ablade. "They called me a terrorist, but they're the threat," he said, pointing at Vanessa. Then Greg, then Chloe. "Tate's done, Vanessa's next." Passengers murmured, some nodding, others shouting, but the tide shifted, their hate cracking. The flannel shirt guy sat, his red face paling, while the navy polo woman whispered, "Is it true?" Marcus felt it. Control, real this time, the cabin his for a breath. He'd flipped the script, exposed Vanessa's rot, and Quinn's leaks were spreading unstoppable. The marshal lowered his stun gun, his eyes on Vanessa, her composure shattering. Marcus stood tall, his suit a banner, believing justice was near, his empire safe. But Vanessa was chaos incarnate, and defeat wasn't her language. The cabin lights flickered, a low hiss filling the air, sharp and wrong. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling, yellow cups swinging like nooses, as passengers screamed, grabbing them in panic. The intercom crackled, Vanessa's voice cutting through, frantic but deliberate. "Emergency," she said. "Everett's tampered with the oxygen system. He's trying to kill us all." Marcus froze, his phone slipping, the cabin erupting, into madness. The flannel shirt guy lunged, his fist grazing Marcus's jaw, roaring murderer. The navy polo man joined, shoving Marcus against the seat, his wine-soaked breath hissing traitor. The teenage girl screamed, her phone falling, while the red scarf woman curled up, gasping through her mask. Marcus stumbled, pain blooming in. His face, the marshal's stun gun rising again, his doubt erased. Vanessa stood at the galley, her smile gone, her eyes wild but cunning. Brian tackled a passenger blocking his path, his walkie-talkie blaring, ground crews alerted. Oxygen sabotage confirmed. Chloe dropped her clipboard, her hands shaking, as Greg shouted from first class, "Pin him down!" The cabin was a riot. Passengers, clawing at Marcus, their masks muffling cries of "he did this." Marcus fought back, his arms shielding his face, his voice lost in the melee. "I didn't touch it," he yelled, but the flannel shirt guy's elbow slammed his ribs, stealing his breath. The jet's hum turned shrill, the hiss of oxygen, or its absence, a death knell. Marcus's vision blurred, not from punches, but from air thinning, his lungs burning. Vanessa had sabotaged the system, her final act to bury him, blaming him for a catastrophe she'd unleashed. The navy polo woman clawed at his suit, shrieking, "You monster," while the flannel shirt guy kicked his leg, his boot heavy. The marshal hesitated, his stun gun wavering, but passengers surged, a mob Vanessa had ignited. Marcus fell to his knees, the smartwatch digging into his wrist, its video useless now. Quinn's leaks had turned the crowd, but Vanessa's sabotage turned them back, her lie a spark in dry grass. The galley loomed, Vanessa slipping behind its curtain, her absence a taunt. She'd vanished, leaving Marcus to face the mob, ground crews ready to arrest him for sabotage, not smuggling, not threats, a crime that could kill him before trial. The flannel shirt guy grabbed his collar, his fist cocked, while the navy polo man spat, "End him now." Marcus's chest heaved, his ribs screaming, the oxygen masks dangling like accusations. Apex Pulse had faced annihilation, hacks, leaks, coups. But this was a lynching, a mob Vanessa had sculpted with precision. He'd exposed her ally, seized the intercom, won the cabin's doubt, only to lose it to her apocalypse. His smartwatch buzzed, a faint signal from Quinn. But the mob's hands were tighter, and Vanessa's trap was absolute. The jet's hum faltered, descent beginning, Seattle's lights close but unreachable. Marcus's vision darkened, his strength fading under blows, the marshal's stun gun a heartbeat away. Vanessa had taken his seat, his tablet, his clarity, his voice, his company's future, and now his breath. Her sabotage a death sentence no video could undo. The cabin's riot was her masterpiece, every scream a brushstroke. Marcus clung to one spark. Quinn's leaks were out somewhere, but the mob's weight was crushing, and Vanessa's shadow was everywhere. Apex Pulse's founder, battered. To his knees, wasn't broken, but he was bleeding and the ground was rising fast. Marcus Everett knelt in row 32D, the Horizon Elite Jet's lavatory hum a fading pulse under the roar of a passenger riot. Blood trickled from his lip, the flannel shirt guy's fist still hovering, the navy polo man's kicks bruising, his ribs, their screams, "He's killing us," fueled by Vanessa Kendrick's oxygen sabotage. Yellow masks dangled, air thinning, as the mob clawed at his tattered charcoal suit. Vanessa's lie blaming Marcus for the hissing system turning them feral. The teenage girl's phone lay shattered, her screams lost, while the red scarf woman gasped through her mask, her eyes wide with terror. The air marshal's stun gun wavered, his shout for order drowned by the navy polo woman's shrieks of murder. Vanessa had vanished, her platinum bun gone, leaving Marcus to die in the chaos she'd ignited. Ground crews primed to arrest him for sabotage. Apex Pulse's founder was battered, but his smartwatch buzzed. Quinn's signal, faint, alive. He wasn't done. The jet plunged toward Seattle, minutes from landing, its cabin a crucible of panic and hate. The lavatory's disinfectant reeked, a ghost of every wound. The seat downgrade, the sabotage tablet, the public frisking, the poisoned meal, the smuggling frame, the terrorist label, the blacklist threat. Vanessa's crew, Brian's fists, Chloe's silence, Greg's poison, had been her weapons, passengers her fire. The flannel shirt guy grabbed Marcus's collar, his breath hot, while the navy polo man spat, "End him," his wife clawing Marcus's arm. Marcus's ribs screamed, his vision blurring, but his smartwatch pulsed, a coded app glowing green. Apex Pulse had built it for crises, system overrides, encrypted hacks. The oxygen sabotage wasn't mechanical, it was digital, a valve locked by Vanessa's desperation. He could fix it if he survived the mob. Marcus surged upward, ducking the flannel shirt guy's swing, his elbow catching the navy polo man's jaw. The mob recoiled, stunned, as he stumbled to the galley, Brian lunging to block him. Marcus shoved past, pain igniting his side, and reached the service panel, its screen flashing red. Oxygen critical. Passengers screamed, masks slipping, the red scarf woman collapsing, her breaths shallow. The marshal raised his stun gun, bellowing, "Stop," but Marcus tapped his watch, fingers flying over the app. Lines of code scrolled, his team's back door, syncing with the jet system. He punched in a command, rerouting the valve, the hiss shifting to a steady flow, masks filled, air returning, the cabin's panic easing as passengers gasped relief, their fists lowering, eyes blinking in shock. The flannel shirt guy staggered back, his red face paling, muttering what happened. The navy polo couple froze, their rage faltering, the wife's hands trembling on her mask. The teenage girl coughed, her phone gone, her glare softening to confusion. Marcus stood, blood dripping, his suit torn, but the panel's green light was his victory. He'd saved them, undone Vanessa's apocalypse. The marshal lowered his stun gun, his jaw tight, doubt creeping in. Chloe stood frozen, her clipboard on the floor, while Brian backed away, his smirk gone. The jet's hum steadied, descent smoothing, but Marcus's chest heaved, his smartwatch buzzing again. Quinn's update, Kendrick's file leaked. Media's got it. Complaints, collusion, sabotage. Live now. Marcus turned, scanning the cabin for Vanessa, but she was hidden, her absence a taunt. Passengers murmured, some clutching masks, others staring at Marcus, their hate unraveling. The red scarf woman sat up, her eyes meeting his, a nod breaking through her fear. The navy polo man whispered to his wife, "Is he the hero?" his voice cracking. Marcus's phone, revived by the watch's sync, lit up with feeds, news alerts screaming, Horizon Elite scandal, crew sabotage exposed. Quinn's leak had spread. Vanessa's 3 complaints now public, tied to Tate's payoffs. Her sabotage caught on cabin cams Marcus hadn't known existed. The mob's chants died, replaced by whispers of truth, their phones buzzing with the same headlines. The intercom crackled, Captain Ellis's voice cutting through. "Remain seated," he said, firm but shaken. "We've restored systems, thanks to passenger intervention. Ground crews are briefed. Stay calm." Marcus exhaled, his ribs throbbing as passengers looked at him, some with shame, others awe. The flannel shirt guy sat, his fists unclenched, muttering sorry under his breath. The teenage girl wiped her eyes, her hostility gone, while the navy polo woman avoided Marcus's gaze, her wineglass empty. The marshal holstered his stun gun, nodding once, his doubt now certainty. Marcus had turned the tide, his team's truth a wildfire, but Vanessa was still out there, her silence louder than the jet's hum. The cabin door rattled, Brian bursting through, his face pale, dragging Vanessa from the crew hatch. Her platinum bun was loose, her blazer creased, her eyes wild but cornered. Passengers gasped, the red scarf woman pointing. "She did this." The flannel shirt guy stood, his voice low. "Get her!" His rage redirected. Marcus stepped forward, his phone raised, Quinn's feed streaming live. Vanessa's complaints, Tate's emails, cabin footage of her accessing the oxygen panel. "You're done," he said, his voice steel, blood streaking his cheek. Vanessa lunged, her nails grazing his arm, but the marshal grabbed her, pinning her wrists. The cabin erupted, passengers shouting justice, their mob reborn, now hers to face. The jet touched down, wheels screeching on Seattle's tarmac, the cabin still as death. Marcus stood, his suit shredded, and addressed the crowd, his voice calm, but commanding. "I'm Marcus Everett," he said, "CEO of Apex Pulse. 3 weeks ago, I bought Horizon Elite. Every seat, every crew, this plane." Gasps rippled, the navy polo man choking, the teenage girl's jaw dropping. Vanessa's eyes widened, her struggle stopping, her face ashen. "Brian, Chloe, Greg, you're fired," Marcus said, his gaze sweeping the crew. "Tate, too. Executive board's out." The marshal nodded, cuffing Vanessa, her head bowed, her empire dust. Passengers whispered, some clapping, the red scarf woman smiling through tears. Ground crews swarmed, black SUVs with Apex Pulse logos lining the tarmac. Quinn's team waiting with tablets, legal orders flashing. The marshal led Vanessa out, Brian and Chloe trailing, their faces blank, Greg slinking behind, his cocky grin gone. Marcus followed, his steps heavy, the cabin's eyes on him. Respect, guilt, awe. The flannel shirt guy offered a hand, muttering I was wrong, but Marcus walked past, his focus sharp. Outside, media vans buzzed, feeds screaming Everett saves flight. But Marcus waved them off, his ribs aching, his mind elsewhere. Vanessa's sabotage had nearly killed them all, her hate a mirror of every slight he'd fought since Miami. He'd won, but at what cost? He stood by the jet bridge, Quinn approaching, her tablet glowing with victory. Stock soaring, Tate arrested, Vanessa's name ruined. But Marcus's eyes lingered on Vanessa, cuffed in a van, her glare meeting his, unrepentant. He could have pressed for prison, maximum charges, sabotage, assault, fraud. Instead, he leaned to Quinn, his voice low. "Divert her case," he said. "Community service, my equity program, 2 years, mandatory. She faces her bias daily, teaches kids who look like me to fly." Quinn frowned but nodded, typing fast. Vanessa's eyes flashed, not gratitude but fury, her punishment a mirror she'd never escape. Marcus turned away, the Seattle sky gray and heavy, his reflection faint in the terminal glass. Passengers streamed past, some nodding, others whispering, "Hero," but their faces blurred. The flannel shirt guy's regret, the navy polo couple's silence, the red scarf woman's quiet thank you. He'd saved the plane, his company, his name, but each blow had carved deeper. The downgrade's sting, the mob's fists, Vanessa's smile as she choked the air. Apex Pulse stood taller, its equity program now a beacon, but Marcus felt the weight. Every fight like this, every room where he'd been less, every glance that cut. He'd flipped their world, fired the crew, spared Vanessa for reform, but the scars were his, permanent. He walked to the Apex Pulse SUV, Quinn trailing, her voice soft. "Press wants you. Forbes, CNN, all of them," she said. "You're the story." Marcus shook his head, his ribs twinging. "Let the program speak," he said, sliding into the car. The door shut, muffling the airport's buzz, and he leaned back, eyes closing. The jet's hum lingered in his mind, a ghost of Vanessa's hate, but also his triumph. He'd landed, not just the plane, but a truth that echoed. Nobody could erase him again. Yet as the car pulled away, Seattle's lights fading, Marcus wondered what battles waited next, and would they ever let him rest? Marcus Everett's ordeal on Horizon Elite Flight 849 reveals the insidious reach of systemic racism, where a single-seat downgrade spiraled into sabotage and mob violence. His resilience teaches us that prejudice thrives in silence. Vanessa's crew and passengers enabled her hate by ignoring or cheering it. Yet Marcus's refusal to break, using Apex Pulse's tech to expose truth, shows power lies in persistence, not surrender. He didn't just save the plane, he rewrote the narrative, turning a trap into triumph. The lesson? Injustice festers when unchallenged. But one voice, armed with evidence and will, can shift empires. Vanessa's punishment, community service, in Marcus's equity program, forces her to confront her bias daily, proving reform, not revenge, builds lasting change. Still, Marcus's scars remind us that victories against racism carry costs, demanding vigilance beyond the fight. His story urges us to question who's erased in our spaces, to amplify truth over complicity. It's not enough to see wrong. We must act, document, and persist like Marcus until systems bend toward justice. What moment in this racism story hit you hardest? Comment below, hit like, and subscribe to join our fight for truth. Share too. Spark change, and thank you for standing with us. Here's to a world where no one's grounded by hate. Stay strong, stay vocal,